Hi guys, School here and welcome to another episode of Trucking School. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to drive a truck. Now you probably already think you know how to drive a truck, and maybe you do. But hopefully I'm going to teach you one or two little tricks or best practices that may help you out. To start with, I'm going to assume that you have watched my previous videos in the Trucking School series. If you're not, then you need to go and do that, because everything that I'm going to teach you today relies on stuff that you've watched in the previous videos. Video description contains a link to the entire series. Having said that, let's quickly start. The first thing you should always do is make sure that when you're stopped, the parking brake is on. Space key to do that, or map yourself a little button, and you can see on the dashboard there the P sign says I'm parked. Second thing is, in the daytime, you should have your running lights on. This is not in any way necessary. This is just what I like to do, so I'm teaching good practice. In the evening, you will definitely need to have your lights on, otherwise you will be fined. Third thing is positioning. Now, as I've mentioned in a previous episode, a truck is much wider than a car. And when it's attached to a trailer, the trailer will drag along behind it. I'm going to demonstrate what that means. So, let's pretend for a minute that I'm in a car. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drive down this road here. And because we're in America, I would be driving on the right like this. And I would quite simply just look at the tarmac here, look that way, and turn my truck like that. That's fine. Just look what's happening to the trailer. The trailer is not following the path of the truck. The truck was to the right of the white line. My trailer is not. Let's have a quick look at that again. Okay, so you drive your truck forward, and let's pretend your truck is following the white line. So I'm going to put my back wheels of the truck on the white line, like that. You see how my back wheels are over the white line? Look where the trailer is. The trailer has cut the inside quite a bit. Now that's okay here because we've got plenty of space, but that's not okay on some of the corners that you're going to have to take in this game. Okay, so here we are again. Now remember, I'm quite tight against this wall and I want to get around that bend there. My trailer is going to try and take a shorter turning circle. So what I need to do is I need to make a bigger turning circle. How do I do that? I simply turn out more. I turn out this way. And then I turn back around. What I'm doing is I'm creating a much bigger turning circle for my truck, which means that the trailer's smaller turning circle is going to fit around that corner. You see? Now it fits nicely around the wall. That's what you want to be doing when you're driving a truck. You need to be taking bigger turning circles to allow for the fact that the trailer at the back is going to take a shorter one. The same principle applies here. Now there's no cars coming, but when I'm leaving this junction, what I'll need to do is turn out onto the other side of the road to make that bigger turning circle so that my trailer can drag behind me without going over the curb. Now after a little while you'll find yourself doing this automatically, but at first it can be a bit strange because you don't experience this when you're in a car. You only experience this in a much longer vehicle such as a truck and a trailer. So that's how to corner better. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is speed control. Take a look at your minimap. Your minimap shows the speed limit, which is 55. Well, you could drive this manually, or you could use the cruise control. How to use it? Well, press escape, go to options, and let's have a look at the controls. Go to keys and buttons, scroll down, and look for your cruise control button. You should find it here at the bottom of the first section. This is the cruise control section. C turns the cruise control on and off. By default, none of the other buttons are mapped. What that means is, if you're going along at a given speed and you press the C key, it will lock in that speed in the cruise control. But you might want to have a bit more control over that, in which case you can map these other buttons here: cruise control speed, increase and decrease, and resume. It works just like the cruise control in your car. With these, you'll be able to increase and decrease the actual speed, and with this, you'll be able to resume it after you've cancelled it. Let's see that in action. So here I am travelling down the highway. I'm doing 52 miles per hour. It's a 55 speed limit. The speed limit is shown on the minimap. If I press the C key, it will lock in my current speed. You notice underneath where it says 53, it now says 53 with a little clock dial. That's my cruise control speed. If I press the minus key, it will reduce the speed down to 50. If I press the plus key, it brings it up to 55. By default, it goes in units of 5, but you can change that in the options. This works best on an automatic gearbox. If you're using a manual gearbox, then the cruise control can only do so much. It will rely on you to change the gears if necessary. If it's trying to cruise control up a hill, and it can't manage it in the current gear, and it's not on automatic, then you will have to change gear for it. So if you was to change down like this, that's fine, except notice it cancelled the cruise control. I would then have to press resume to get it to carry on again. As I say, on an automatic gearbox, it will fully manage the situation. On a manual, it's limited. However, it's still completely functional. On an interstate, there's nothing to stop you, even with a manual gearbox, just pressing the C key and locking in the speed. So that's another tip for you. That might help you to avoid speeding penalties as well, because there are random speed checks along the route, even on the interstates. Next thing we're going to look at is the weighing scales. Now, occasionally you'll be driving along and a police car will ask you to pull over and submit yourself for an inspection. All you need to do is look for the scales on the minimap. You can see next to the parking area here, there's what looks like a pair of scales. That is a weighing station. Now, when the police car normally does it, it might be somewhere on this kind of a road. You'll be driving along and you'll suddenly get a message saying, pull over and submit yourself for weighing. You need to drive into the scales and submit yourself. If you don't, you'll be fined. It's that simple. All you need to do is move over, just as if you were getting fuel here. That is the fuel pickup point there. If you stop there, turn the engine off, you can fill your truck up with fuel. Find the scales, and we should see them on the right over here. There you go, where it says scales. Now be careful with this one because there are barriers on either side. But what you want to do is swing wide again. Remember what I taught you about the making a larger turning circle with your truck to allow for your trailer to turn on that narrower turn. Pull up onto the scales. A message will pop up which will say submit yourself for weighing. You press the enter key and that's it. That's all you need to do to stay legal. If you see that message, pull in at the nearest scales and get it done. Now in the States, they operate a turn right on red policy. What that means is if you want to turn right, you can do so as long as it's clear. So the lights are on red, but I'm turning right. I'm perfectly entitled to do that. That's not the case in European Truck Simulator, so if you are coming across from European Truck and you go through on red, you're probably used to being fined. However, in American Truck Simulator, you are allowed to turn right on red. Now, we all know that accidents can happen. Just like this. Now, when this happens, you're going to get a few things. Crashed vehicle offence. You can see I got fined for that. Not only that, but I've managed to tip a truck over in the middle of the road, which is not good. But even worse than me is I've damaged my truck. If we press the F7 key, sorry, you can see the result of what I've just done. I've damaged my truck by 20%. I've also damaged my trailer by 13%. Damage to my truck means my truck is now going to become more unreliable. It's liable to break down as we're driving. I will have to get it repaired, and it's going to cost me money to get it repaired. The trailer, on the other hand, is going to cost me in my pocket because my customer is not going to be happy with a damaged trailer. If you damage it too much, he's not going to pay anything at all. In order to fix your truck, you can take it to a repair station. To fix your trailer is impossible. If you want to fix your truck, bring up the minimap and look for one of these red spanner icons. Now, if you drive yourself over to here, you'll be able to get yourself repaired. If you're unable to drive over here, then you can see on the screen there with the F7 key pressed, it says press enter to call for assistance. Press enter, it will take $338 and the trip will take an hour. In other words, this is going to delay you in your journey and cost you money to be recovered. But if you're desperate, this is what you can do. This now recovers your truck over to the repair point. So if you press the M key, you can see it's teleported me to the repair point. All I need to do now is press the enter key and it'll bring up the service and upgrade window exactly as if I'd driven over to that spanner and pressed enter on it myself. You need to go to the service menu and it will give you a breakdown of the repairs. Now when you're short for cash, you may have to consider which elements to repair because you may not have the money. If you do, just click repair to repair the whole thing and your truck will be back in 100% condition. The trailer, on the other hand, remains at 13% damage. As I said, there's nothing you can do about this. But that is what happens when you have an accident, so be careful out there. And that is it for this episode of Trucking School. I hope you found that episode useful. In the next one, we're going to tackle probably the thing that most people have the most difficulty with: how to reverse a truck. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, take care guys, and happy trucking.